Myanmar protesters this Sunday marked the anniversary of a 1988 pro-democracy uprising that brought Aung San Suu Kyi to prominence with flash mobs and marches of defiance against the ruling military junta. The civil disobedience movement began as a campaign that has seen thousands of professionals such as doctors, teachers, lawyers and engineers go on strike, refusing to work under the military rule. Myanmar has suffered more than half a year of unrest since the military seized power, removing the democratically elected government on February the 1st. The National League for Democracy Party, which is your NLD party, won a landslide victory in Myanmar's general elections in November 2020. However, the military claimed unsubstantiated electoral fraud, it seized power and ousted the present government. NLD leader Aung San Suu Kyi and the president Win Myint have been detained since, facing several charges. So in this context, let us understand the history of political turmoil that we have seen in the country of Myanmar. Throughout its decades of independence from the British colonial rule in 1948, Myanmar has embroiled itself with military rule, civil war, isolationistic approach as well as abject poverty. So in this context, let us also go through how the governance in the country of Myanmar has changed from political democracy to military regime. So the Union of Burma began as a parliamentary democracy like most of its newly independent neighbors, but representative democracy only lasted until 1962 when General U Ne Win led a military coup and held power for the next 25 years. Ne Win instituted a new constitution in 1974 based on an isolationistic policy and socialistic economic program that nationalized Burma's major enterprises. The economic situation deteriorated rapidly, and by 1988, widespread corruption, rapid shifts in economic policy related to Myanmar's currency, and food shortages led to massive student-led protests. In August 1988, the army cracked down on protesters, killing at least 3,000 and displacing thousands more. In the aftermath of the 1988 crackdown, Ne Win resigned as chairman of his party, although he remained active behind the scene as a new military junta took power. In 1989, the military regime changed the country's name from the Union of Burma to the Union of Myanmar, and the capital Rangoon was renamed as Yangon. In 2005, the military government moved the administrative capital to Nao Pitao, a city it built in central Myanmar. In this context, let us also understand what is Saffron Revolution. Massive protests erupted in Myanmar in 2007, sparked at first by widespread anger over steep jump in fuel prices. But public ire quickly turned against the military government that had ruled the Southeast Asian nation with an iron fist for 5 decades. The protest movement was dubbed the Saffron Revolution, which was named after the saffron-colored robes widely associated with Buddhist monks who were at the forefront of the demonstration. Protests spread across Myanmar, eventually drawing tens of thousands into the streets in Myanmar's commercial center Yangon. The violent military crackdown that followed left at least 13 dead and hundreds injured and arrested. However, despite such protests and violence, the junta pushed forward for a new constitution in the year of 2008 that gave military widespread power even under the civilian rule. In 2008, the military promulgated, as a part of its so-called Road to Democracy process, a new constitution which foresaw the holding of free and fair elections for the country's new bicameral parliament. Notably, the military retained a de facto veto over future constitutional changes by reserving a quarter of the seats in both the houses of parliament for military appointees. The new constitution also stipulated that the ministries of defense, home and border affairs needed to be headed by military appointees, thus enshrining prerogative for the military and paving the way for a system of hybrid governance. The year 2011 marked the beginning of a process of political transformation, with Senior General Than Shwe stepping down as the head of armed forces and as head of state, and Thein Sein became the first democratically elected president of Myanmar. Thein Sein proved willing to work with Aung San Suu Kyi, the leader of the oppositional NLD party. Aung San Suu Kyi, the daughter of independence hero General Aung San, rose to prominence during the 1988 protests. After the crackdown, she and others formed the NLD opposition party. However, she was detained in 1989 and spent more than 15 years in prison and under house arrest until her release in the year of 2010. In 2015, Myanmar held its first nationwide multi-party election, which was considered to be the freest and fairest election in decades since the country's transition away from military rule. Suu Kyi's opposition NLD party won a landslide victory, securing a majority in upper and lower houses of the parliament. New lawmakers elected Hu Tin-chau, a confidant of Suu Kyi, as Myanmar's first civilian leader in decades. Suu Kyi was appointed to the newly created position of State Councillor, becoming the de facto head of the civilian government. However, one must keep in mind that the military still continued to yield much power, as the 2008 constitution included several provisions to protect the military's dominance. For example, 25% of the parliament seats are reserved for the military, and any changes to the constitution needs approval from more than 75% of parliament members, effectively giving the military veto power over any amendment. In 2020, Myanmar held its second elections under civilian rule, which the NLD party overwhelmingly won. The military suffered a major blow in the election, which won just 33 of 476 available seats, while the NLD won 396 seats. Military leaders alleged voter fraud, and after the country's election commission rejected the military's claim, it staged a coup in February of 2021. The military detained and charged Suu Kyi, placed lawmakers from the NLD and other parties under house arrest, and announced that Senior General Min Aung Hlaing would take charge of Myanmar during a year-long state of emergency. In the aftermath of the coup, Myanmar saw its largest protest since the Saffron Revolution, with tens of thousands of people calling for democracy and the release of Suu Kyi and the others.